Hello and welcome to the Second Tier podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Steve Bruce to my Carlos Corberan. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Justin, are we all right?
I'm delighted. You bring up Steve Bruce and all I can think about is, how's the bacon, did you say?
Yes. Steve Bruce is he's got quite a few memes to his name now, hasn't
yes.
he? Is he the most memeable manager that there is?
There might be. There's also there's the one on the beach. There's one of him, I think, looking like he's in a chip shop. But Sam Allardyce has got one of those as well. But how's the bacon is definitely his peak. It's peak Steve Bruce,
or
isn't it?
the one where he is sorrowfully looking up and going, "Hey," and it's just that one. You haven't even mentioned the cabbage head.
Cabbage head, old cabbage head. Yes, old cabbage head. That's a great joke, and still to this day, a Villa fan getting a cabbage into a football ground is incredible.
Yeah, one day we will find out what happened there. There's also the one where he says, "Oh, you got to look at this one." Oh, and he's talking about someone's goal or something like that. He's just what a man. We need him back in football, really, don't we?
Maybe not as a manager, certainly as a personality, he can add something. I don't think I want to see him again as a manager in the Championship. Or maybe if he does, it's got to be for a Sheffield Wednesday, that type of club in that situation. Not don't go back to Wednesday. Because
he'd be a good appointment for them, wouldn't he? He'd be a good appointment for, I think, any bottom half Championship side, I would say. I think he's still got something to give. I think I'm right in saying as well, this calendar year, is the first one he's not been a player or a manager in since something like the 80s. He's been going for that bloody long.
He deserves a rest then, doesn't he?
He just wants to be out in the West Indies, doesn't he? You know,
Don't we all?
You know, sat on a beach saying to people, "Hey." Welcome to the number one Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, what a round of midweek games we've had. My oh my, we have had some bloody drama in midweek, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the news from the past few days as well in the Championship. And then we'll finish off with Scott High or Ryan Lowe right at the end of the show. And we'll kick things off with a meeting between top v bottom. A 93rd minute equaliser saw Sheffield Wednesday draw 1-1 with Leicester. And it was a very flat performance from Leicester. They actually had fewer shots than Wednesday. And the equaliser certainly had been coming in this one. And Justin, you've had your reservations recently about Leicester City. And I'm guessing this result will only strengthen them.
They're not reservations. They're just, I just want to see more from them. The term I used at the weekend was I want to see Big Daddy Leicester. We've not seen Big Daddy Leicester yet, have we? They've got so much attacking quality and potential that they need to utilise it more. They have to punish teams when they're on top. So it's not a reservation. It's I know you've got more in you, so stop holding back. That sort of thing.
It does sound a bit like a reservation.
No, but I would term a reservation as a bit more of a scepticism. I'm not quite fully convinced by said club.
You said at the weekend you've got reservations about them running away with the league.
Yeah, I do, and it's mainly because of complacency. You look at this game, for example, Sheffield Wednesday. They showed Sheffield Wednesday almost no respect in the sense that, or far too much respect. I don't really know where that saying lies, but the point I'm making is there was an opportunity here to really stamp your authority on a team who are struggling, who are not in the best place in terms of scoring goals, and you've made them look a lot better than probably what they are. You've made them look like a mid-table side, as Danny Raw quoted at the weekend, and that's not where Sheffield Wednesday are. If you are a team going for a title in any division, you've got to go to the bottom side and show what you're about. And Leicester didn't. They didn't. And as I say, it's that complacency that makes me think other teams are going to get opportunities to close that gap, as they did in this game week. We've got a really, really interesting run of games up until the Christmas period, a lot of games as well. And I just think now's the time to set those good habits, and I don't think Leicester have yet.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they've gone from winning 10 games in a row to losing 2 and then winning 1 in a very impressive fashion against Watford at the weekend, and then drawing to the worst team in the league. So 4 points from a possible 12 is not a great showing. And I mean, this was a really poor showing from Leicester. I'd go as far to say it was actually their worst performance of the season, actually. Because not only have they failed to beat the worst team in the league, they deserved to concede that late equaliser. They were much sloppier in terms of possession than we've been used to, and were their own worst enemy at times. So I think some of the problems they've faced lend to some of the concerns I raised about their summer transfer window. Enzo Maresca made 6 changes against Wednesday, but I don't think the strength in depth is as strong as he would like, because you got Kasede and Yunus Akun in midfield, who are quite the downgrade on Wilfred Ndidi and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Connor Cody has looked very rusty, certainly not like an £8 million defender, and the lack of a left-sided defender has been a real issue. So I think all of that has been far from ideal. I'm still very much of the opinion that Leicester will go up, most likely by winning the league with relative ease. But this result and performance has unquestionably left me with my eyebrows raised.
And quite rightly so, but you've got to give credit to Wednesday for how they assert themselves, because you're coming up against a team who are as good as Leicester, and they showed that they're more than capable of competing, which is a lot of compliments to Wednesday, and a lot of compliments to Danny Rule as well for turning things over relatively quickly, actually. So whilst on paper it looked like an easy game for Leicester, I think if you do add into that into the fixture, this sort of fixture with that sort of complacency in your head, and you've got a team like Wednesday who are slowly on the up. It's a very slow incline, but they are on the up. Then you are going to get punished, and they did. And if they play like this against a team who have a little bit more quality in the final third, it could have quite easily been a defeat.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to deny that. It was a fantastic result for Wednesday. It's only their second game in 7 where Danny Rule hasn't lost, so he'll be hoping they can get the ball rolling after this one. You didn't even notice that one, ladies and gentlemen.
I just didn't
fair enough. Unfortunately, it comes off the back of another few days where the owner, Dejphon Chansiri, has been in the news again. A Sheffield Wednesday fan group, the 1867, have put out a scathing letter about our old friend Chansiri. They've been having meetings with various parties about the future of the club and have accused Chansiri of blocking a sale. They say a consortium is interested in buying Wednesday, but Chansiri isn't giving them information, despite saying he would be prepared to sell the club if the right alternative came along. They also claim he's only willing to sell if he makes a substantial profit on the 38 million he bought Wednesday for in 2015, and if he still has a significant share of the club. It is just baffling, Justin.
Yeah, it is. And I think the one thing you've got to consider here is the fact that Birmingham sold for 35 million, Hull sold for 30 million, Derby sold for 18 million, that's excluding the stadium. I think Coventry's price was 50 million, but that included a £25 million bid of the CBS. So final fees unknown, but in the region of 25. What are you expecting to get for a club that you've basically not rinsed, actually, because you get something out when you get something out of it when you do that, but you have damaged incomprehensibly on the pitch and off the pitch. Commercially, he sponsors the club, or his business has sponsored the club, so there's not too many external partnerships with big brands out there. On the pitch, it's an ageing squad. There's no real valuable assets within there. Chansiri has robbed the club of its short-term future, and I think that's the frustrating thing, is you see performances like this against Leicester, and you look at Danny Raw, young exciting coach, and he's not got the tools to work with, because Chansiri can't see his arse from his elbow when it comes to running a football club or selling a football club. It's frustrating. It's frustrating and disappointing, and worth pointing out as well that he sold the stadium to himself, unsuccessfully, I'll add, to curb profit and sustainability. So he holds that card as well. So a sale is going to be even much more difficult.
Yeah, and it feels like this is becoming a bit of a fortnightly thing now, isn't it, where you and I bash our heads together at how infuriating it is watching Wednesday self-implode because of this madman. And I mean, the idea that he thinks someone may be willing to pay substantially more than the 38 million he bought the club for is mind-blowing, because we're dealing with damaged goods now, aren't they? Damaged solely by one man. And you're right, Wednesday are big clubs. There's so much potential here, especially with Danny Rule in charge, who I think is doing a great job in the circumstances. But Chansiri's like a dementor from Harry Potter. He's just sucking the life out of Sheffield Wednesday as a football club. And if he doesn't go, I would not be... Well, I'd be quite worried that we would see a similar situation to what's happening at Reading now, where the future of the club is in peril and they're in serious danger of ending up in League Two, perhaps even further down the pyramid. So he needs to sell, but unfortunately we're dealing with a man who is the maddest owner of a football club in the country, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you're quite right. All I can think about now is Chansiri, the Dementor quote, whenever he comes by, sucking the soul out of the club.
I don't know that quote.
It's literally a Dementor quote from Harry Potter.
Dementors don't talk.
No, they don't. Dementor didn't say it, did he? Anyway, carry on.
Who said it?
I think it's...
Is it Danny Rule?
Whenever Chansiri comes by.
Yeah. Back onto the promotion race, and Leicester's draw meant Ipswich, Leeds and Southampton all made ground on the Foxes. Ipswich bounced back from their second defeat of the season at the weekend by beating Millwall 3-1. They're just a point behind Leicester again. They had 19 shots to Millwall's 5. A very comprehensive win, really, in the circumstances. Leeds remained 7 points behind the top two. They came from a goal down to win 3-1 at home to Swansea. In the first minute of this game, Leeds had a goal disallowed, and then Swansea went straight up the other end and scored.
I had to double check because I thought it was the camera, a bad edit on the camera. I had to really double check as to whether or not that actually happened.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Joel Pirro and Dan James both scoring against their former club. They both celebrated the goals, and apparently Pirro was kissing the Leeds badge after his goal. A lot of Swansea fans seem to have got very exercised about that. Justin, does it really matter?
It can leave you with a bitter pill, but he's not spent 5 or 6 years at the club and made over 100 appearances as he's there for 2 seasons, was a very good goal scorer. So you could sort of let it go, but I understand their vehement frustration.
Yeah, I saw a couple of Swansea fans saying, well, we made him and this is how he pays us back. They didn't make him. Joel Pirro made himself, really. They were just kind of a shelf that he was allowed to, a platform that he was able to perform. I don't know why shelf came to my mind, but they were just a platform, really, and he gave as much back to Swansea as they gave to him, really, didn't he?
Yeah, I think we might be overthinking it a little bit, but it's just a classic case of, I think a player's gone for big money. Maybe the Swansea fans have given him a little bit of stick in the game, and he's scored and he's kissed the badge, and that's what it is. Yeah,
Dan James celebrating maybe a bit more unseemly.
Dick move.
Maybe. I mean, he didn't go mad, let's be honest, but he is a former Swansea Academy product, of course, isn't he? Southampton stay 1 point behind Leeds after beating Bristol City 1-0. Southampton have won 24 points from an available 30. They were unbeaten in 10. The only teams they failed to beat in that time are Rotherham, Preston and Huddersfield. Strange teams to struggle against in that time, but going very well are Russell Martin's boys. Now, could there be a dark horse for automatic promotion emerging from the shadows in the form of West Bromwich Albion? They made it 5 wins from 6 by beating Cardiff 1-0. They have also revealed they've increased the loan they've taken out, essentially keeping the club running. We'll talk more about that shortly. First and most importantly, Justin, Jeremy Sarmiento got the goal. Did he mean it?
I want to say yes, because at first glance you go, oh crikey, he's hit that well. That's a great goal. But then you watch it again and you go, oh, I think you've crossed that, haven't you? Yeah. There's a bad cross, Jeremy.
I'm not giving him that at all. At no point did I think, yeah, that's a shot. He didn't even look up. It's just flowing in past the keeper, and it. But yeah, fair enough to him. Well, despite the ongoing uncertainty off the pitch, things are going brilliantly on it, aren't they? 5 wins from 6. The form team in the division, based off the last 6 games. 5th in the table. And I tell you what, I'm looking at them wondering, could they possibly be in with a shout of getting the top 2, Justin?
I think it's worth bringing them into the conversation, especially in a couple of weeks' time. Should form continue, it's definitely worth bringing them into conversation because they are such a well-drilled, defensively good outfit. There aren't many teams in that top 6 who are as comfortable defensively as West Brom are. The Christmas period is obviously a big one. It's where teams can make up a lot of ground and basically slingshot themselves into contention. We saw Forest a couple of years back, didn't they? They really cranked up a gear, throughout December. But if you were to assess them now, for me, they are the best defensive team in the division comfortably. It's just whether their attack can match that efficiency at the back, first third, final third sort of thing. His Huddersfield side showed that they showed the same principles, and he's got more quality at his disposal. And they were, I can't remember how many points off automatics they were, but they were sort of in the conversation around March, April time. So if West Brom can get to March, April, still be within the conversation of automatics, then Corberán deserves being in the conversation for, so it keeps saying conversation, but you get my point, for manager of the season, because it's an outstanding job that he's doing.
He is doing an outstanding job. I think Kieran McKenna and Ipswich may have a say as to manager of the season, but I've just been so impressed with West Brom in recent weeks. They look so well drilled, particularly in this 6-game run that they're having. I wouldn't want to rule out automatic promotion at all. They've kept the most clean sheets in the division as well. I've just been extremely impressed, and this stretch of games has only grown my appreciation of Carlos Corberán. He is just a top innovator. They're playing this well despite the problems of the pitch. Also not having a top striker, by the way. That's something that's I thought was going to be more of an issue than it is, but it's really not been so far. They've got a tricky couple of games with Leicester on Saturday and then Sunderland after that, but with the way they've been playing, I can very feasibly see them continuing their marvellous forms. So, you know what? They're making me raise my eyebrows, question everything that, I had held dear to me about this season. And I'm all here for it. Keep it going. Well, I hate to be a dampener, putting a dampener on things, but we do have to talk about the increased loan that West Brom have taken out. I'm wary that people may switch off at us talking about financial things like this, but it's fair to say this loan threatens West Brom's very existence. So last December, they took out a £20 million loan over 4 years for what the club said was to cover the general business operations. We asked football finance expert Kieran Maguire about it, and the long short of what he said was, I have no idea how West Brom are going to pay this back unless they spend time in the Premier League. The amount they borrowed has now been increased, but they haven't said by how much. And I find this deeply concerning, Justin.
Yeah, it's massively concerning. I think if a club's relying on external funding from essentially a bank, a football bank, if you like, it's not sustainable. And West Brom should have had that transition where basically there was a fire sale and there hasn't been, mainly because a lot of the players are, at the wrong end of their careers and quite expensive. But I think with this loan, it gives them a little bit more time to get into January and see where we're at in terms of a takeover. I think what you've got to remember as well is, I think, it exemplifies the job that Carlos Corberán is doing, by the way, because if you've got a manager who can maintain a consistency that he's doing whilst this is happening off the pitch, I think it's an incredible job. But also, I think if you can get to January and get a takeover over the line, John Percy tweeted that talks are still ongoing, and there is hope of a completion of a takeover before January, then it's looking a lot rosier come the second half of the season, because there's potential there to add to his squad and add in that little bit more quality that he needs.
Well, that's best case scenario, isn't it, Justin? But still, even if they do get a takeover done, at the end of it, there's a new owner who's potentially coming in who's going to have this big fat bill that they're going to have to pay back at some point, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? Because I think when clubs take out loans, you look at the best case of talking about this is Derby. They took out 2 loans from MSD, the football bank, if you like, and David Clowes had a very hefty bill to pay when he took over the club. It increased the value of the club exponentially without the club actually being worth what it was bought for, or what David Clowes ended up paying in the end. And as well as that, the worrying thing is debts are usually written against assets of the club, whether that be stadiums or training grounds again. So
yeah. Justin, you're getting all very technical about it now. I think I get what you're saying, but to put it into more layman's terms, what's happening now is like walking up to a roulette table, putting your mortgage on red, and then saying, actually, let me put my life savings on there as well. It's gambling with the club's future. It's very shady, not disclosing how much money they've loaned. Is it a couple more million? Is it another 10 million? it's just so open to speculation, and it's a timely reminder of how badly West Brom need a takeover. I do think it makes the club more difficult to sell. If there is reports, of course, as you say, that a takeover is on the table, but they may get put off if they find out that this loan has been, increased substantially. We just don't know how much it is, because any potential owner now knows that they're going to have to be paying off this massive bill at some point if they don't get to the Premier League in the next few years. And that's very scary. I just hope a takeover does get done sooner rather than later, because I can see things getting worse further down the line if something doesn't change.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It will get worse, because if the club isn't sold, or the club doesn't sell players to essentially pay for the loan or pay to keep the club running, then come the end of the season they're going to have a threadbare squad. It's going to be a completely different situation. I think it's one of those scenarios where I would say it's promotional bust, but it's promotional. Things are going to get a whole lot worse come the end of the season.
Yeah, well, that's a very safe way of putting it. Quickly, back on Cardiff, the manager Errol Bullitt has called for VAR to be introduced into the Championship. It's after some questionable decisions from his perspective in this game. What do you think of that particular conversation, Justin?
Two things. Errol Bullitt, welcome to the Championship. We've had this problem for a very long time. It's not got better, it's got worse. So there's that. You've got to do your dues, you've got to do your time. It's how it works. The other thing is, I'm pro VAR. I'm just not pro the rules or the quality of officiating. I think VAR works in a certain circumstance, so I'm with Errol Bullitt on that. But the circumstances at the moment are shit, i.e. officiating is not very good, and the rules are a mess. So it needs a lot of cleaning up before it starts to infiltrate the rest of the football pyramid.
Yeah, well, we could have a very lengthy conversation about VAR, couldn't we? But, every other podcast is doing it, and we're very fortunate in the Championship that we don't have to talk about VAR every single bloody week. I think all I would say is that I think a lot of the bad perceptions about VAR right now are more down to the current rules. As you say, like the handball rule, for example, right now is just an absolute farce. And I think VAR in itself does need a lot of work before it should be, spread out more widely to other leagues. I do want to add, he's coming from Europe as well, where it's implemented a lot better in other countries than it is over here. What's that?
So there's that. Sorry?
What's that based on?
It's based on the lack of controversy we're seeing in other divisions.
Do you just not hear about it as much, though?
No, I do cover European leagues.
Okay, then. Well, there you go. That's put me in my place. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about the rest of the games for midweek in the Championship. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. QPR won at home for the first time in 261 days. They beat Stoke 4-2 to give Marty Cifuentes his first win as Rangers boss. Stoke were down to 10 men for nearly the whole of the second half after Ender Stevens was shown a second yellow, which looked very soft. Justin.
No, I disagree. I do think it was a second yellow.
I knew you'd disagree.
I had to watch it 3 times to see it when he pulls his shirt. It's really subtle, but he pulls his shirt.
Yeah, it's the smallest possible tug of a shirt. But at the same time, the QPR player has gone round him, run onto the ball after that tug, and then collapsed to the ground with no contact at all. I just knew you'd try and disagree with me in some way, shape or form. It's not a second yellow card at all. QPR's first home win in 261 days, as I say. It's actually only their second home win in over a year. So how big a monkey could that be off their back?
I think a big one. I don't know what the biggest monkey is in the animal kingdom.
Just a gorilla, I guess.
Yeah. It's one of them then, or maybe 2, because I think this sort of thing becomes a bit of a hoodoo, doesn't it, in football? Everyone talks about it, gets in your head, and it starts to snowball into this almost curse-like thinking about it. But it's not a fluke by any means, because there's been a lot of progression under Marty Cifuentes that needs to be shouted about. They're yet to concede over 1 XG under him in his first 4 games, which is really impressive. Defensively, they're more assured, more organised, and have a lot more purpose. And it's a very healthy place to be. And we saw a lot of the attacking confidence come back to them in spells in this game. Look at the Elias Chair assist for the own goal. I think it was him back to his best in terms of his dribbling quality, and obviously buying that yellow card as well. It was just a lot of quality and confidence coming back in certain areas under Cifuentes, which is a big positive. So yeah, big gorilla off their back.
Yeah, a massive King Kong-sized gorilla off
go.
their back. There you go. Well, we have been saying that QPR have played better under Cifuentes, but it's just not been translating into results. So that first win was always going to be big. I think it's even bigger when you consider that Chris Willock scored. He's been out of form for a very long time, and Lyndon Dykes got a couple of goals. His second was brilliantly taken. He also did miss a very simple 1-on-1, but that's Lyndon Dykes for you. But it's a huge win for Cifuentes. Defensively is where the big improvements have been for me. They look so much more solid at the back than they did previously, so that's huge, and they've got some very winnable games coming up. So if they manage to get some form going, it could be gigantic. While we're on the subject of QPR managers, Gareth Ainsworth has popped up. He says he'll focus on music if his football career stalls. He told the BBC, "I'm a musician first. That's what I always say to people." It's very David Brent, isn't it?
Yeah, massively David Brent. The Cold-Blooded Hearts are his band.
Yeah.
You reckon I could book them for my wedding in the summer?
Ooh, I mean, I'd love to see it. Have you listened to them?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, Justin, it's not terrible. It's not awful. It's very pub bandish. It's like when you go to the Dog and Duck on a Saturday night and there's a band playing and you're like, should we go down the road instead?
Yeah.
It's not awful.
Yeah, it's not what you expect from a football manager, but he's probably not going to say yes to playing at my wedding, considering I called him a goth and lambasted his football for months. So, yeah, we'll leave it there.
We've called him a goth, out of his depth, David Brent.
Yeah. Sorry, Gareth. I'll drop you an email.
Free love on the Free Love Freeway. Darren Moore got just his second win as Huddersfield manager. They won 2-1 away at Sunderland. First win in 6 for the Terriers as well, against brilliant opposition, by the way. A fantastic result for Darren Moore, who has been finding himself under a bit of pressure recently, hasn't he?
Yeah, it absolutely has, and rightly or wrongly, the squad's clearly not good enough. But I think this game showed that he can organise a team, because they were fantastic defensively. I watched the last 20 minutes of the game on the Red Button, and I saw a stodgy, sturdy performance from Huddersfield. It was a really uncomfortable affair from a Sunderland perspective, because they doubled up on the attacking players that had quality. It was a really good game plan. Obviously took the chances when it came as well. Bergzorg's goal was nicely taken, and Helik, I think, is his 5th goal this season. I think they're all away as well, which is an incredible stat. But there's a lot of positives to take from a defensive point of view. It's just about getting more from their attack, because they haven't been scoring freely of late under Darren Moore.
Yeah. Well, they've rode the luck a bit against Sunderland, but they did also defend brilliantly, and that's how they've just got to play more often. It certainly helps having Delano Bergzorg back fit, because he can be a difference maker for Huddersfield, can't he? And I've said this before, but I find it hard to blame Darren Moore for their recent form simply because of the strength in the squad. However, I think the big hope for Huddersfield with regards to their survival chances is, I think they're likely to strengthen the most in January, because these new owners will hopefully be wary that their investment in the club is going to look quite poor if they go down. So a busy January is imperative. Until then, though, they have got some very winnable games, and they need to make the most of those fixtures. A masterclass from Jaden Philogene saw Hull beat Rotherham 4-1. 2 goals from him, one of which was properly filthy. That back heel, how dare you, Jaden? These people have families, and he has been mind-blowingly brilliant this season, hasn't he?
He has. He really has. There are very few players in a season that do capture your heart as a neutral. And Jaden Philogene's, he's got it. He's reeled me in. I'm not going anywhere, Jaden. You are. I am yours, and you are mine. Or maybe the other way around. But he's just fantastic player. He's the definition of a form player at the moment, because there's no way you'd try that back heel if you're even slightly out of form or just coming into form. But he's top of his confidence, and when you've got the confidence to do that, try those things, and amongst others, be just an absolute menace as well. You're in a great place. Nine goal contributions in the last 7 games. It's just outstanding. 11 for the season. He's an unreal talent, and Villa might be kicking themselves looking at his form at the moment.
Yeah, well, he's only had 1 game in the last 10, I think it is, where he hasn't contributed to a goal, whether it's an assist or a goal. It's just remarkable. And I mentioned at the weekend that we'll be making our halfway team of the season soon, and we somehow have to fit Crescencio Somerville, Jack Clarke, Morgan Whittaker in the same team. It was poor of me to forget Jaden Philogene. We may have to go full Garth Crooks and make a team of wingers, because all the best players this season have been wingers, really, haven't we? I mean, let's be frank, if we had to pick the top 5 players of the season, they'd all be in with a shout, wouldn't they? I mean, Dewsbury Hall, Leif Davis, Gabriel Sara.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to have a natural striker either. I think there's been so much quality in the wide areas.
Well, it depends if you count Sammy Schmodix, I suppose, doesn't it?
Well, natural. But as I said, I think it just exemplifies the quality that Jaden Philogene has put in this season. He's been so consistent, and to be able to compete with the players that you've mentioned who have done it, in previous seasons is remarkable.
Yeah, he has been incredible. He's had so many scintillating performances and is really spearheading Hull's top 6 push, isn't he? Hull had 12 shots on target here, Justin, the second most by a side in a championship game this season. Can you guess the team who had the most?
I want to say Leeds, but I don't. It might be. I want to say Birmingham potentially as well.
No, it was Watford. Of all teams, it was on the first game of the season where they spanked QPR. They had 13 shots on target in that one.
First 45. Yeah. We're the best team in the league, according to Gary Ainsworth.
Quick word on Rotherham's away record, by the way, in the last 12 months is mind-blowingly bad. Just 7 points won from a possible 63. Jesus Christ, why do their fans even bother? There was a bit of talk of caretaker boss Wayne Carlisle getting the Rotherham job following the Leeds draw last Friday. After this, he was like, yeah, maybe I'm not getting this. Watford came from 2-0 down to beat Norwich 3-2. A cracking result for Valérien Ismaël's boys. Ismaël Koné had a terrific game in the middle of the park, as did Jake Livermore, who's turning out to be a very smart signing for the Orns. He's seemingly gaining cult status at Vicarage Road. Just 1 loss in 8 for Watford. But let's go to Wagner-Voch, Justin. Norwich back to losing ways. Fans back to calling for David Wagner to be sacked. Could Sunday be a decider for David Wagner's Norwich future? It feels like we've had quite a few deciders for his future, really.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's particularly fair from my point of view based on his last 2 wins. I feel like we, and maybe some Norwich fans, can maybe get a bit reactionary to especially when a team's really badly out of form.
Justin, that QPR win at the weekend was as...
Yeah, it was poor.
It was as unconvincing a win could be, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, it was, and performances need to improve drastically. But there's no point pressuring Ben Napper into making a decision that he's clearly not ready to do in terms of identifying the next man and essentially the next chapter at the football club. This I say it over and over again. This falls on Stuart Webber. Stuart Webber has put the club in this position, not David Wagner. So it's not particularly fair that he gets a lot of the flack, although he is leading the team. It doesn't help that George Long cannot save shots either. He's a big problem.
Yeah, well, when your goalkeeper's not saving shots, that is a bit of an issue. So you think David Wagner should be given time?
I think we should lay off him a little bit and just allow him to manage the team.
Not sure I agree. I mean, between the 28th and 81st minute of the game against Watford had 21 shots and Norwich had 2. And that is just simply appalling game management. And it feels like we're just waiting for the inevitable to happen. The Norwich journalist Paddy Davitt wrote this after the Watford game. This is a season going nowhere under a head coach who is seemingly incapable of drawing a line in the sand. And I think he's pretty much hit the nail on the head there. From my perspective, it's as simple as this. David Wagner's not the long-term answer for Norwich. So why are we dicking around? And for me, I think a loss against Bristol City, that would make it 9 defeats from 13. And surely that will be the nail in the coffin. But we've said that so many times, I'm not completely convinced that it will be. Blackburn 4, Birmingham 2. Sammy Schmodix signed a new contract at Ewood Park this week and celebrated here by getting 2 goals and strengthening his lead at the top of the goal-scoring charts. 13 for the season now, and he has just been on fire since that first kick of the new campaign, Antti.
It's a bit ridiculous, really. I remember him signing last summer, and we were a little bit sceptical of the fee. It was around about £2.5 million, and it was expensive to pay for a player who just hasn't really got going in the Championship. But he was good last season. He's been remarkable this season. His first goal here against John Ruddy was beautifully cheeky in terms of his chip, and probably overshadowed by Jaden Philogene's goal in terms of the cheekiest goal of the game week. But he deserves all the credit that he's getting, because he's reimagined himself as a really good striker. His runs, actually, timing of his runs and quality of his runs and how clever they are, remind me a lot of Timo Pukki, which is a big compliment. And he's finishing not quite there, because he could have a lot more goals, which is incredible to say, by the way. But his runs are just outstanding. And he deserves all the credit that he's getting at the moment, because he's really, really reimagined himself.
Well, he's having a remarkable season, which I don't think I ever saw coming. I've literally just checked, and he has had 3 seasons at Championship level prior to this. It is including a Bristol City season where he didn't really play much for them, but I'm going to include it anyway because it fits my narrative. But he's scored more goals already this season than he did in his previous 3 Championship seasons, which just goes to show how remarkable a season it is that he's having. I will disagree with you, Justin. You look at it from a underlying data perspective, his finishing this season has just been sublime, but he's getting in the right positions as well, so I don't see any reason why he can't continue scoring. I'm not sure 13, what will be just over a third of the way through the season, so if he gets another 13 for the remaining 2/3, then that'll push him.
Mitrovic.
Yeah, it'll be in the 30s, won't it? Which I'm not sure will necessarily happen, but full credit to him. He's having a season which I never expected to see, and is one of the reasons why Blackburn are having quite a good season in their own right. Coventry got just their 5th win of the season by beating Plymouth 1-0. Haji Wright got the goal, but did it stay in, Justin? Replay showed the ball may have gone out for a goal kick in the build-up.
No, I paused the video at the exact moment Van Eerwijk's foot met the ball, and it looked in for me. I think it's quite an easy one.
Well, I think it's a similar case to the old Japan v Germany and Newcastle v Arsenal thing, where the ball from one angle looks like it's gone out, but the whole thing hasn't. When you look at it from above, there's literally no way of telling. But I think I think it may have been one of them. So I'm willing to give Coventry the benefit of the doubt here. But as we say, Haji Wright got Coventry's goal, and he's a man who needed a goal, didn't he?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. He's had some criticism, and rightly so. A fair amount of money was spent on him. He's not been clinical enough in front of goal. He's been one of the, I think, he's actually been the biggest underperformer this season in terms of converting his chances. But he's clearly been an important player. Mark Robbins likes him. He's quite unorthodox in how he plays, which lends himself into certain scenarios, and he gets himself into good shooting positions, which shows a nice instinct. It shows a good instinct, I should say. And it's just about refining himself, being more confident in front of goal, and putting those chances away. Because he took his goal really well against Plymouth here, and it was the only goal of the game, so it's an important one. So that should give him the confidence to, be a lot more fruity in front of goal. Don't know where I was going with that.
A bit more fruity. That's what we all want to see. But he has actually got 5 goals for the season, which, without context, isn't a bad return. It's only when you see some of the chances he's missed that you realise how he struggled. And I know XG makes people roll their eyes into the back of their head, but bear with me on this. So far this season, his expected goals per 90, not including penalties, is higher than any other player since the 2018-19 season. That's including Aleksandar Mitrovic and Ivan Toney, amongst many others who scored a lot of goals. And that is just absolutely insane. But that shows he's getting in the right positions. It's just his finishing has been woeful, and really should have more than just the 5 goals. He might be a confident striker, though, and I get the feeling that when he gets going, he could be an absolute beast. You just got to give him time. It just depends how much time it takes for him to really get there, doesn't it? And finally, Middlesbrough 4, Preston 0. Feels a bit harsh having a 4-0 victory last in the show today, so sorry, Borough fans, but Middlesbrough's 2nd win in 5 games. They had a mini slump after smashing everyone for a few weeks, but a 4-0 is a very good way to get back on track, although their next couple of games aren't very kind. They've got Leeds away and then Ipswich at home, which is pretty much as tough as it gets, isn't it, nearly? Matt Clark made his first appearance for Middlesbrough in over a year, though. He's been out with a back injury, so that's a very welcome return. Let's have a look ahead to the weekend. So in each preview episode of the second tier, Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider, so someone we think is going to win, but is bigger odds with the bookies than their opponents. So we're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. Whoever loses has to do a forfeit, which will be a CrossFit workout for myself, while Justin has to do a coach trip from Sunderland to Plymouth and back. The current scores are 21-15 to myself. We nearly had a full house last week for the first time this season. Justin's banker of Leeds to beat Rotherham was the only prediction not to come in from us, so I managed to extend my advantage even further. Justin, what is your banker for the weekend?
Bit more confident this weekend. I'm going with Blackburn to beat Sheffield Wednesday away. Blackburn's away form's just sensational, isn't it? They create a lot of chances and score as well. So I think that might be too much for a bottom side Wednesday. Although, just give you a little bit more confidence with Leicester. Shami Shmodix is in form as well. So that gives me confidence that Blackburn will win at Wednesday.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that. My banker, I've gone for Leeds to win at home to Middlesbrough, and I'm hoping this isn't the one game in 5 where Leeds struggle. They seem to play better against the better sides, though, and their home record is phenomenal. It's 5 wins on the bounce now at Ellen Road, 20 points won from a possible 24 on home soil. So that's why I'm going for a Leeds win here, despite Middlesbrough obviously getting that 4-0 win against Preston, which is very impressive. My outsider for the weekend is Millwall to win at home to Sunderland. There wasn't a huge amount of outsiders which appealed to me, but I decided to go with Millwall. I mean, their home record is pretty rotten, just 1 point from their last 5 home games, but I fancy them to improve under Joe Edwards. Sunderland's, have just come off the back of a loss against Huddersfield, so, this would be a good place for Joe Edwards to start the rejuvenation of Millwall, which I'm hoping is just around the corner. Justin, what's your outsider?
I've played the game a little bit here because I was surprised to see Stoke were favourites to beat Plymouth. So I'm going for Plymouth to beat Stoke, essentially. Green Army have scored 22 goals away from home or at home. Stoke have been very sloppy in recent games, which could be punished by the sensation that is Morgan Whittaker. And again, I'm banking on form players bringing me out of this because I have not really brought that into my thinking of late. And need confidence.
Well, Plymouth are better at home, aren't they,
exactly,
than they are away. And I was the same as you. I was very surprised that Plymouth were outsiders for this one. I thought you were pulling a naughty on me. But fair enough. For some reason, Stoke are the favourites in this particular game. Now it's time for this.
Scott High or Ryan Lowe?
That little bestie's fucking shit, mate.
Yes, it's time for Scott High or Ryan Low. This is the game where we have to rank 4 things from highest to lowest. It's as simple as that. There's 3 questions. And just like in Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight, we're opening the floor to you, the listener. Send in your Scott High or Ryan Low questions to secondtierpod@gmail.com and you could get a shout out on the show. Put Scott High or Ryan Low in the subject line and you could very well feature in next Thursday's show. This week, Justin is providing the questions to me. So what have you got for me, Justin Peach, you bastard?
You call me a bastard every week. You know this, right?
I know.
Okay. Well, at least you mean it. The first question is I want you to rank in order based on who's the worst performing player in terms of missing big chances. So basically the worst performing non-penalty XG for the nerds. You've just been talking about Haji Wright, which is the thinking behind it. So the players I've mentioned. Firstly, do you understand the question?
So are you doing it based on the number of big chances missed, or are you doing it based on how poor their goal scored is compared to their XG?
It's based on the XG, because I couldn't find the actual number of big chances missed. So your players are Brandon Thomas-Asante, Ellis Sims, Carlin Grant and Jorginho Ruta.
Okay, I will go Ellis Sims top, straight off the bat. And then I'll go Brandon Thomas-Asante second. Colin Grant, Jorginho, Ruta. I think Ruta might be surprisingly high. So I'll go Ruta third and then Grant bottom.
You've got two you've got two right there. I was surprised at seeing this, but Ruta's top. Then it's Brandon Thomas-Asante.
Yeah.
Then it's Ellis Sims and it's Carlin Grant. I think Ellis Sims not playing as many games maybe works against him here.
No, that's fair. I think I remember seeing Ruta has missed quite a few chances. I remember seeing that the other day, but I didn't think he'd be the highest out of that bunch. But you know what? Fair play.
Your next question is a good one. Phil Jagielka retired this week.
Ooh.
Cry. What a player. So I want you to rank in order for me the number of appearances made for the following sides. Derby. Sheffield United, his second spell. Not his first spell, his second spell. England and Stoke.
Right. So I don't think he played much at all for Sheffield Wednesday in his second spell. Sheffield United in his second spell.
Blasphemy.
And I remember seeing that he's made a surprisingly large amount of appearances for England. I don't recall him ever playing for England, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying he's got 40 caps or something like that to his name. So I'll go England top, Stoke second, because I think he had more than one season there, whereas at Derby he only had half a season, so I'll put Derby third. And then I think Sheffield United, he only played a handful of games, I think. So that's the order I'll go with, Justin.
So you've gone with England, Stoke,
Derby, Sheffield United.
Derby, Sheffield United. It's very, very wrong. It's completely over the shop. Yeah, so he made 50 appearances for Stoke. 50 appearances for Stoke, incredible. 40 caps for England, you were right on that. Roy Hodgson favoured him quite a lot. 22 appearances for Sheffield United in the second spell and only 21 for Derby, so it was close.
Oh, so I wasn't that wrong, I just needed to move a couple of bits about. So yeah, I can't believe he played that much for Sheffield United. I didn't think he just did.
In the Premier League as well.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. And what's the last one, Justin?
I want you to tell me the most popular way to eat a potato, or rank the most popular way to eat a potato.
What's it
Chips.
based
on? It's based on a journal in Ireland. I couldn't find a UK one.
What? So that doesn't really answer my question. What's it?
Oh, it's based
is it
on
a survey or is it someone's
opinion? It's a survey. It's a poll. Yeah, it's a poll that was part of a journal.
Okay.
The schematics.
You could have just said that.
These are schematics I didn't think we needed to discuss. But anyway, the categories of potato are boiled, mashed, roasted, and chips. In
Ireland, you say? So I'm having to second guess my Irish heritage. Well, I'll put was mashed in there as well.
Yeah, mashed, boiled, chips.
Well, I'll put boiled bottom straight off the bat. Then I'll put mash second for bottom. Then roasties or chips. I will. Well, that's a tricky one. That is because I think people are more likely to eat chips more often, but I think when it comes to something like this, I think you're more likely to say roasties you prefer. So I'll go boiled, mashed, chips, roasties.
So that's reverse order.
Yes, with boiled being the bottom one. Sorry.
Boiled, mashed, chips, roasties. You got roasties right. The rest are just about wrong. So it goes roasted, mashed, chips, and boiled.
Oh, so I've just had the middle two in the wrong order.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not. I think roasted potatoes are a bit overrated. I'll be honest.
Depends.
I'm a mash man.
It depends how you cook them. If you stick some duck fat around them, beautiful.
Not really for me. If you like boiled potatoes,
because you're vegan.
Yeah, that is true. But if you like boiled potatoes, you are a criminal. It's disgusting.
Yeah, not for me. Good mash though. A good serving of mash is incredibly
creamy.
Superb. I like it a bit lumpy at times because I'm dirty like
Ryan.
Dirty. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Sunday to give you a review of all the games in the Championship this coming weekend. So we look forward to seeing you then. As always, if you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, it helps us go a long way to grow as a podcast, and we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you for that. Only takes a couple of seconds of your time. Otherwise, have a great weekend and we'll see you on Sunday. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.